Hello, hello. Hello, my dear seekers and finders. Welcome to the Way of Truth number 27. My name is Spiritual Teacher. This is my website, so feel free to check it out. In this series of broadcasts, we discuss all matters of spirituality. I give advice and guidance on the spiritual path, answer questions, we share experiences. So anything that you would like to talk about, open your heart, be vulnerable, speak truth, be honest. All of this is really wonderful. So I encourage you, if you want to speak to me, I encourage you to join this broadcast live. So I'm going to post, as usual, a link. So here it is. It's posted to the comment section on Facebook and to the chat section on YouTube. So we broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you wish to speak on video and one-on-one, please follow this link. All you need is a browser. And I will bring you on screen and we'll have a conversation. So this is usually much more productive and interesting and engaging and lively than to post questions. That being said, if for whatever reasons you would like to remain anonymous, please also post questions to YouTube or Facebook, and I will see them, and I'll be able to bring it up, and we can discuss that. So we have 3 people in the guest room, so I'm not sure. I think that a lot of them I haven't spoken before, so I'm very curious, and I will start with bringing up Dave K on stage. So hold on. Dave, hi. Hi. I cannot hear you.
Okay, I think we're good there.
Yeah, okay. I think we spoke before, right?
Yes,
Yeah, you look familiar. Yes, hi, how's it going?
good. I mentioned to you recently that I had been down for the count with a terrible back injury, and it lasted 2 months. I'm feeling better today, but I noticed during that time that personhood really coalesced around the intensity of the pain as well as the sleepless nights. There wasn't any position I could get into to get sleep. So I was up 6 or 7 times and just grabbing 30 minutes, 40 minutes at a pop. This went on for a couple of months. So I was just beleaguered. And there was this very strong sense of attachment to a body free from pain, a life free from pain. Somebody brought something similar up to Rupert Spira once, where he said, well, that's not really an attachment. The body naturally wants to be out of a state of pain. But I wondered how you work with individuals when that personhood becomes very strong in circumstances like that, where there just seemed to be a constant feeling of, I don't want this. And even when I would just accept fully that there was nothing I could do to get out of the pain, and it was a bunch of sensations, very, very intense, maybe an 8 out of 10. This went on 24 hours a day for 2 months. And at some point, there was just a sense of almost failure. The personhood I was saying, we shouldn't be attached, let go of a body that wants to be out of pain, but it felt very, very difficult. And I'm just wondering how you talk to people about this and how you might guide them to surrender to something that feels almost like you can't surrender fully to it. I got 98% of the way there, but there was still that little bit that was like, I don't want to be experiencing this awful thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so I would agree with Robert here. It's the body's naturally doesn't want to be in pain. That's normal. Pain is a signal that something is wrong. So if you're not experiencing physical pain at all, then you won't survive for very long, actually. So physical pain is part of life. Well, first of all, I also wanted to say that I'm very sorry for this experience. I bet it was very difficult. I am actually personally not even one of those teachers that say you're not the body, you need to let go of the body. I don't think that the state of complete enlightenment is the state of letting go of the body. That's actually a stage on the way, And even Nandi Shanti said, "Let go of the disembodied awareness." So, in my experience, it's an experience. It is you're still in the body and you still feel pain, but it feels like you are somewhere outside of the body. It's an experience. It can be an abiding experience. I myself spent uh, quite some time. I mean, I think a few years in the kind of a disembodied state. And many teachers think this is enlightenment, but what then was revealed to me further is that the completely enlightened state is the completely embodied state. So if we speak of Osho, for example, in his later bodies of work, which he called Beyond Enlightenment, he said, "My spirit and my body are finally one." So consciousness and body is one. Mind and body is one. So there is a very deep wholeness with regards to our bodily experience and the experience of consciousness. So if you feel like you're an outside observer, kind of observing the body, that's still not complete embodiment. So so what I call the ego, and which is the only way, which is the only thing that you can actually let go of, is the continuous suffering, actually, in the absence of any physical difficulty, right? So if you're undergoing a physical difficulty, you're absolutely not going to like it. If you undergo physical pain, you're absolutely not going to like it. I don't like physical pain at all. So there is something to be said, right? So you can describe ego as resistance to experience. The biggest, the bulk of the spiritual path is resistance to emotional experience and energetic experience. That's why people begin to meditate in complete absence of any physical difficulty, and they experience tremendous energetic or emotional difficulty. So the resistance to emotional and energetic experience is the bulk of the spiritual path, and all of this kind of this experience is coming from the past. So these are all the suppressed emotions. These are all the things that we reject, the parts of the self that we reject as we're trained, conditioned by society. So it happens through experiencing it. It happens through giving it awareness, through focusing on it and giving it awareness. There is something to be said, like theoretically, and I have observed in my experience that the physical pain is of the same nature. That ultimately, uh, uh, as we give attention and awareness to the physical pain, and as we become curious about how the physical pain feels like, then we also transcend our resistance to it, and we can become a neutral observer of the physical pain and even enjoy it to some extent. But as a kind of overarching philosophy of life, this isn't workable at all, because that's basically suicide. Because in life, if you have a healthy body and you lead a healthy life, physical pain is usually a signal to action, right? There's some exception to that. Like, for example, in your case, probably, or in case like you have some illness, or like, let's say, a cat who's just been in a fight, and then it's healing. So it's sort of, it spends a lot of time without movement, right? So it simply basically kind of lies down and nurses its pain. So I think in this situation, it's quite possible to a certain extent transcend the physical pain by giving it direct awareness. So the interesting kind of notion of awareness is that the closer you approach experience, any experience, and I think that it applies to physical pain to a certain degree, the closer you approach the experience, the more neutral it becomes. So I think in your case, you kind of were struggling with two aspects of it. The first is just the unpleasantness of the physical pain, which Rupert is correct. It cannot be escaped. It's part of life, right? And the second is the egoic component of it, which manifested as thoughts. Oh, I shouldn't be having this pain. When this is gonna end, like some sort of emotional turmoil around.
Mm-hmm.
So this second component is what can be transcended on the spiritual path, in meditation and in practice. And this episode itself actually might have helped you see it deeper. The less of this component there is, the more bearable kind of the physical pain becomes, but it doesn't mean that it becomes pleasant, right? So the advice that I can give in these situations, if you like, sorry, there's a cat there. So if you in situations where you cannot do anything with the physical pain, is to try to approach it directly with awareness. That's actually the same advice that Osho gave. And I have done it in my own struggles with some pain. I probably didn't have physical pain, as intense as you have. But with the pain that I did struggle, so basically the advice is try to focus on the center, on the very center of the physical pain, and just give and place your attention there, and just let it rest there. So the way that Osho described it is that the more you do that, the more sort of the more focused you are on the center of discomfort, the kind of smaller it becomes, and then ultimately it disappears. So that's the dissolution of resistance to experience. To which extent it works, from my own experience, I cannot say. I can tell you that it works with mild to moderate physical pain from my experience. Right. I, for example, have struggled tremendously with migraines, and in some extent, it works with migraines. I know that, right? So there's and migraines can be extremely painful, although they're not like precisely physical in nature, but they can be extraordinarily painful. So I just couldn't move at all, right? And if you like focus on the point which is most painful, and you just keep your focus there, it's kind of goes away. And the way that it works is you just basically stop minding the experience, because it's also our kind of automatic looking away from the experience, which constitutes suffering. So it's not like the pain becomes pleasant, but we just stop looking away from it, right? So as we look away from the pain, and by the way, be it physical or emotional, we also kind of try to find, we try invoke, right? Oh no, not invoke. Invade, right? We try to find ways to escape this experience, right? And the mind occupies itself. So we simultaneously we will look away, and the mind occupies itself with attempts to find ways to avoid this experience. But the truth is that no experience can be avoided. So by looking directly at it, we actually acquire a certain amount of equanimity and acceptance of it. So it's not to be confused with doing absolutely nothing about physical pain, right? But in situations where you already can do nothing, I think that that is the difference between pure pain and suffering. So to which extent it works, I can tell you from my own experience that it works to some extent. So it worked with migraines, and it worked with some pain that I like, even right now, right? If I hit my finger or something like this, the very first thing that I do, and it happens automatically, is that I focus, the awareness focuses on this precise sensation, right? And it doesn't mean I don't do this, or like I don't do this. Of course I do, but it happens. But it's sort of, there's a curiosity there, like, oh, how does it feel like? You see, and this curiosity in itself, this approaching an experience in itself, eliminates quite a substantial amount of difficulty. So I don't have this other part, oh, like, which is, oh, why did I do that? Oh, it shouldn't be happening. So this has been worked through mostly in meditation and psychedelic trips. So this part that's coming from the past, it can be worked through meditation and psychedelic trips. But the future events, like, they cannot be. You don't know the future. So so it's actually quite possible that if I was in an extraordinary amount of physical pain, like you were, I wouldn't be able to do that. I don't know. Like, I would try to, right? And that would be my practice, barring like the fact that, of course, I would, in some situations, I would also consider taking opioids and things like that. I'm not against that at all.
Yeah.
But if I have no choice, if I have some sort of a chronic physical pain and I need to sleep, I wouldn't be too much concerned with not being able to fall asleep, because meditation and sleep is the same, pretty much. The body rests the same, and I would basically just lie down and rest as much as I could, and I would try to give direct awareness to any sensation of discomfort. To what extent I would, if there would be again, like, mind activity and this kind of egoic suffering on top of that, I don't know, because I haven't yet
Try it out.
Yeah, I don't want to try it out. Thank you. Sometimes I see that, it's quite possible, actually. We don't know, but it's quite possible that as the body begins to die, actual death. I don't mean the ego death. I mean the actual death. Cells begin to die. All the bodily processes stop working. It's actually quite possible that you go through a lot of physical pain. I don't know. No one knows, because there's not a single person who actually underwent physical death, not ego death, or not some sort of a temporary stopping of the heart, but the death where the decomposition starts to take place, and came back to talk about it. But what I do know for sure is that even if this is so, then sooner or later the experience of, I hope it's not so, but even if it, because I hate pain, but even if it is so, then sooner or later, any experience is accepted. And once it is accepted, it is perceived as neutral. And any experience can be enjoyed, and then ultimately any experience ends. And once the experience ends, there's nothing but peace and bliss. So just like with the emotional, energetic component, I think with the physical component, if you cannot do anything about it, the recipe from the spiritual perspective is the same. So try to approach it, become curious about it, because you see, it's not like there's an illusion in consciousness, and it manifests extremely well when we're talking about emotional, energetic, egoic suffering. But I see absolutely no reason why it wouldn't be applicable to physical pain. There's an illusion in consciousness that by looking away from something, we make it easier to bear it. But that's not true, actually.
The experience got me thinking about these monks. There are stories about monks after they're self-realized. At some point, they're trying to burn that in so that it's entirely abiding. And at the end are sent out naked, hungry, into the dark where they have to spend, let's just say 30 days out begging for food and so on, as a final test of whether or not they have fully severed all attachments to the body itself, to hunger states and so on. So I was thinking during this time when I was in so much pain, like, oh, I think I would fail out in the desert because I'm right now, I'm like not doing such a great job with this pain. And I can imagine that would also be a very sort of
I personally think this test is kind of stupid. So from my perspective, any test that jeopardizes your physical well-being as a living being, as an animal, basically.
Yeah.
And in order to prove or test your enlightenment is a stupid test. So I might I'm not sure that I would even be interested in a test of physical pain that doesn't jeopardize my physical well-being. But the absolutely vast majority of experiences that include physical pain do. That's why the pain is there, you know.
Yeah.
So unnecessarily hurting the body, right? So if the body if my body is still going to go through a lot of physical pain at the end of life, as I get some terminal disease, or as we discussed earlier, as I'm going to die, then as I begin to die, then I'm going to go through it anyway. So I see absolutely no reason why I should not enjoy my healthy body while I'm still relatively young, and sort of do all this silly tests. That being said, if I ended up in this situation like you have, that's exactly what I would have done. So coming back to this previous point, so right, there's an illusion in consciousness that by looking away from the experience, we make it easier. So I think that the same illusion applies to physical pain. So it does not become easier when in consciousness we try to kind of run away from it. It's still of the same intensity. So there is no reason, and I've seen this in my experience, right? Not as extreme pain as yours, but whatever pain I have experienced after enlightenment, I have seen it happening automatically with awareness. So there is no reason why you should not become curious about it while it's happening, you know.
Thank you, Artem.
It's the same advice that Osho gave, basically.
I appreciate that.
You're most welcome. Do you have anything else?
I'm just so conscious of your other guests here, so I want to make sure they.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let me bring someone else. Okay, Anton, I'm going to bring you up next. Hi, Anton. How's it going? Hi.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm really happy right now, actually. I need to calm down a little bit. The question I have, focusing on the inner body is enough to realize the self?
Exploring all bodily sensations and tensions is enough to realize the self. The difficulty is in the separated state. It's very difficult to explore the bodily tensions and sensations, emotional or energetic sensations, because there is a very strong gravitational pull, so to speak, of thought. So like you start doing that, and that's, by the way, what they do in Vipassana. So you start doing that, And only like for 2 seconds, maybe you can look at some bodily sensation, and then immediately you notice that you're thinking again, right? And so the concentration meditation practice is actually its real purpose is to break this attachment to thought. That's why they usually select a neutral object for concentration practice. So breath is a very good object. So as you, like, for example, doing concentration meditation on breath, what you're actually practicing is you practicing to include other parts of your experience into your awareness, because in the separate state, the awareness is like laser focused on thinking. You're always thinking, and everything else kind of not interesting. It's going on, but you're not paying attention to it. Your attention is glued to thought. And so as you do, like, let's say, concentration practice, you're practicing ungluing. You're practicing letting your attention go to other places than thought. So the methods like Ramana method, who am I, are sort of designed to exhaust the thought process also, because there is no answer to the who am I question that is true or that cannot be challenged. And so once the mind sort of exhausts itself in futility of this pursuit, consciousness is found. And so again, when the consciousness is found, it feels like your awareness expands, but all that's really happening is that now in your awareness there's more than thought. The awareness feels contracted and small when it's focused on thought. And so if you can do it directly, if you can explore your bodily experience, especially unpleasant experiences, so if you can give awareness to your emotions, to the bodily tensions directly, without thought stealing it from you every single second, and that's actually all you need, because the function of consciousness, once the awareness expands, what happens later automatically is it starts exploring the rejected parts of you. It starts exploring the discomforts in you that exists even when you're just resting, right? So this it starts exploring the unconscious. We can say that consciousness begins to excavate the rejected parts of you. And so kind of if in your awareness you can give direct attention to multiple parts of your experience, if you can give direct attention to uncomfortable parts of your experience, emotions, tensions, energetic experiences, then you don't need concentration meditation, and that is enough, right? But for a lot of people that are very attached to thought, the spiritual journey, the self-realization, begins with some method to find consciousness, to switch the identity from the thinker into something, a greater container in which everything happens, in which the thinker happens, but in which the feelings happen, in which the body is felt, in which the sensations happen. And for that, other methods like concentration meditation or Ramana's method, or even do nothing meditation, because it happens naturally and automatically after some time, can be employed. So that's a kind of a longer, more nuanced answer to this question. So yes, but it's difficult to do in the beginning.
Okay.
But if you can do it,
I will need to watch this again. But actually, the feeling of the self, myself, my ego self, is like a tension in my head.
okay, so explore this tension in meditation. Explore this tension.
Its attention in my head feels like the I.
So give direct awareness to this tension. So let the mind talk in the background. Don't try to stop the mind. Let it talk.
No.
Don't try to stop it.
Yeah.
But bring this tension just physically. Like, so if it feels like in your head, you feel somewhere there's tension.
In the head, like the whole head feels like the I.
So explore. So give this tension your direct attention. Focus on this tension.
Okay.
And what's going to happen most likely is that after some time, and it may take some time, right? It may take half an hour, it may take an hour. But what's going to happen most likely is that after giving this tension your direct awareness, after focusing your awareness on this tension, the thought stream around this phenomena will shift after some time to something else, and then they may arise other experiences. Like, for example, I don't know, you might have some sort of an insight, or you might begin to cry, or you might get angry, or there might be some other experiences in the body. So
actually, I don't have that much thought. It's much like. Wait a minute. It's much more like a feeling of the self. I asked the question, like, who am I? And
that's great. It really doesn't matter. So whether you have a lot of thought or you don't. So if you have thought, just let it run the background. If you don't, that's fine. But this feeling, this experiential feeling of tension is the most important thing, and it should be the object of your attention. So my point was that it might shift to something else. It might change. So the sort of the most important spiritual practice in meditation is giving direct attention to the most uncomfortable part of your experience. So if everything is completely fine and you only have this tension, then give this attention to this tension, right? But if you've had the attention on this tension for a while, and you feel that something else uncomfortable is coming up, like, for example, there is a tension in the throat, or you start feeling grief, or you start feeling anger, or there is fear, or there's a tension in your stomach, and it is more uncomfortable for you, then let the awareness go there. So the awareness kind of naturally in meditation wants to give attention to the most unpleasant parts, because it has
the most unpleasant part.
And it's basically the direction. It's the manifestation of love. You see, love is attention. So it naturally wants to give attention to what hurts, what's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Actually, I have one more question. One time I meditated. I did this do nothing. And I started to cry a lot.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Exactly what I was talking about. Yes.
And it felt like toxic. My body felt toxic, like intoxicated and stuff like that. And tears felt toxic, and this toxic is my question.
Well, so your question is it normal to feel? What
I feel toxic. My body feels that I started to cry, and the body felt toxic, and the tears felt toxic, and it felt poison, like poison.
Well, if you ask me if it's normal, then yes. So basically, the ego is toxic, and it's completely normal to kind of feel like you are exuding poison from this. I mean, some people even describe it as feeling of like exorcism, or something like that. So it's completely normal to feel
Okay.
like you are sort of getting in touch with your darkness or toxicity, or exercising your darkness or toxicity. It's completely if your question of is it normal, then the answer is yes. And I've
Okay.
it's important to let those tears flow. It's important to let those tears flow. It's important not to put down, not to suppress any experience. Even if you feel like anger or rage or hatred, it's important to to also let yourself experience that in a safe way. Of course, don't harm yourself ever, and don't harm other people or other living beings. Don't harm life ever. But there are, on the spiritual path, universally, a lot of tears, a lot of anger, a lot of rage. So those are all the suppressed toxicity, so to say, that makes us suffer, and we let go of it through feeling it, through allowing it, and can be pretty scary and weird, but ultimately it is seen to be extraordinarily beautiful, because all of these experiences are beautiful, and you are releasing the what you've always carried with you. You see, it's the only way it can be, because how else? Like, meditation is just doing nothing. So you've done nothing for like an hour, and now the tears come up. So the only explanation is that they've always been there. You've been carrying them with you.
Yeah. One can feel that. One can feel it in a sense. It is something there.
Yes. It will be seen clearer and clearer on the intellectual level. I mean, whilst we're in the turmoil of this emotion, it can be very disorienting. It can be very difficult to see what's going on. We're just completely overwhelmed by it. Difficult to find words for it. But it will be seen clearer and clearer on the intellectual level that it's all about making peace with the past, making peace with the society, making peace with the world, making peace with yourself. So it's all about resolving what we refuse to see. What we refuse to see about our past, what we refuse to see about ourselves, what we refuse to see about other people. And kind of this suppression and deliberate blindness, willful blindness, are two sides of the same coin. So as we work through suppression more and more, we begin seeing clearer and clearer. So clarity corresponds to emotional equanimity. So that's why it's important to let yourself have these experiences.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let me bring the next guest. I'm going to bring Patrick to the stage.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, my friend. Hi, Patrick.
Yeah, hi, Artem. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, and you're recovered from your cold.
Yes. That's it. By the way, it's been nasty. I mean, probably not as bad as David's back, but like for a couple of days, it was really painful. So I did just that as I talked to him. I was just lying down. I slept a lot, and I just giving direct attention to the pain.
Yeah, I can a little bit resonate to that, because a few weeks ago I attended a Vipassana, and in the middle of the Vipassana I got a cold, and was tough, but yeah, I managed it. So yeah, my question is, since Vipassana I got deeper insights, and something is pulling me against to this whole thing. And stumbled across the observer. And I wanted to know what's your take on that.
Observe the observer.
Yes.
It's kind of difficult for me to talk about it because it's been such a long time that it's very difficult for me now to relate to it. So, but I write about it in some of my earlier answers. So actually on my website, if you read all of my answers, there would be, I mean, it's not very well structured, but there will be answers there with that touch on this topic. So basically, the observer also doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And the observer, once it is found, the witness, the function of the observer is to look at the ego. So once the ego becomes sufficiently small, then you start looking at the observer itself, because the observer is also not the real you. It's also kind of, in a way, constructed by the mind. And what is looking at the observer itself is absolutely nothing. So that's what Osho meant, for example, when he said, in witnessing the witness, the ultimate ecstasy is created. Yeah. So when you begin to be able to actually observe the observer, that's why the ego like truly dissolves into the void. So there might be like some parts of it yet, but it's a much greater freedom than to be the observer and the ego. Now, people use this all the time. This phrase, they say things like, "Be aware of the awareness." That's pretty much like the same as observe the observer. The problem with this advice is that it can very easily be misinterpreted, just like anything else on the spiritual path. So it's like you read the thing all the time. Happens to everybody. Happened to me. You read all of this, you read other masters or teachers, and you think you understand it all. And then when you see it and you experience, you understand how you misinterpreted everything. Well, maybe not everything, but some specific things. And they meant actually the opposite of what you thought they meant. So this applies to be aware of the awareness advice, because a lot of people interpret it in this way, right? So something difficult comes up. Oh, remember your awareness. Be aware of the awareness. Go into the awareness. Find refuge in the awareness. You see? And then it becomes the opposite. Then it becomes the tactic of suppression.
Yes.
So if you kind of escape, find refuge into the awareness, then you're not observing it, because what observes the awareness is something beyond the awareness or consciousness, which you cannot even see now or perceive, because there's too much ego. And so the first thing that needs to happen is that the observer must give direct attention to all the egoic suffering, right? And then when the ego becomes sufficiently small, then you sort of by yourself you realize that observer also didn't exist. You see, so it's it is not something that you can kind of force. Like if it just happens, if you try to observe the observer, then you'll just concoct some other observer that observes the observer, or you will use it as a refuge from the suffering.
I read about like the mirror hall. Observer one, you have 0, and then the 1, and then the 2 sees the 1, and then it goes in a loop, in a loop, in a loop.
Exactly. Yes. So that's why you see. I think Krishnamurti said once, "The moment you're aware of your awareness, you're not aware." And that's exactly what he meant. Like this thing that we talked about. So kind of the authentic, deep, sort of centerless awareness. It's you're not aware of it at all. It's just completely ordinary. You see.
Yeah.
So be aware of awareness. When I hear advice, when people say be aware of awareness, they are either in the stage where they look at the awareness as some sort of refuge, or they're trying to give example, give advice to people that haven't found awareness at all, right? So it's basically the same as asking the questions. Well, where does the soul arise? Where do your thoughts arise? So it's pointing to consciousness.
Yeah.
But kind of, observing dissolves things, right? So authentic observation of the observer dissolves the observer.
Okay. So I got out the most important things: don't to force it,
No,
and
don't try to force it. Yeah.
be patient with the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be patient with the process and give direct attention to anything uncomfortable that comes up in meditation.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, thanks for answering my question, Artem.
You're most welcome.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hassam, I'm going to bring you next. Hi.
Hi, Artem. How are you?
How are you, my friend? Good, thank you.
I'm good. So for me, I just find it like fascinating or very interesting when I see people cry, at least regularly, or maybe some may say at will. For me, I never really cried, essentially. I mean, maybe a couple times when I was younger, maybe my first breakup, but I don't really find it easy to cry. I don't know if that's because I'm having a lot of suppressed or repressed emotions, or it's because I don't have the intensity of emotions others have. So I guess my question is, how can I cry? How can somebody cry?
My bet would be the former. So my bet would be, of course, I don't know, but just because you answer this, but just because you ask this question, my bet would be that there's a well of tears in you.
Oh, really?
And yes, and you see, I was quite the same. So I think that between, let's say, something like 10 or like maybe 9 or 8, like when 10, 11, maybe something. So when the boys usually stop crying because they sort of internalized the message that boys don't cry, right? When the boy is still like 7 or 8 years or 6 years old, they still allowed to cry, but sooner or later they've been told that it's shameful for men to cry, and around a certain age, like before puberty, somewhat before puberty, like in certain cultures, certainly in the brutal culture of Soviet Union, the boys stop crying. Otherwise, they called sissies and stuff like this. So somewhere between that time and around like maybe 30, I didn't cry at all. Like not a single tear. Like maybe
Right.
30, 32, something like that. Just never. I was still miserable, but I didn't cry. And so I got enlightened at 40, and I cried for like 3 years nonstop after that. Like, if you find it difficult to cry, then you're either not in touch yet with your suffering and suffering of others and what's going on here, or you pretty much have zero of it. But if you have zero of it, you would also not say that you find it difficult to cry, because if you have very little suffering, then the moment tears come up, they just come up effortlessly. You just cry for a very short time, right? So today, nowadays, I cry very rarely, and if I cry, it's absolutely effortless. It's beautiful, it's blissful, and it lasts for like 20 seconds. So and I mean, again, if something really happened that made me cry for much longer, I would cry with pleasure and for much longer. But I would never say today that I find it difficult to cry. So if you find it, if it feels like an appropriate
It's not like
of your situation, then there are tears. It's just hard for you to let yourself to let them flow. So please, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to say it's not that I have an urge to cry. It's just that I don't cry. There's nothing. There is no specific emotions that signals an urge to cry for me. I don't know if you understand. So it's not like I feel like crying and I don't.
So I mean, okay, I understand. So then maybe it was just, I find it difficult to cry. It was just another very kind of precise description. So I understand what you're trying to say. We don't know which case it is, right? So because the only two options are there's either a lot of suffering in you and a lot of tears in you, or there's pretty much no suffering in you, and then you're like still asking me questions for some reason. So we don't know which case it is. It will become clearer as you continue to live and practice. So if you just do nothing meditation for like 90 minutes or 2 hours, and if you do it consistently, it may bring up other things, right? So strictly speaking, if you can meditate for as long as you like, and there is no evolution of experience in meditation, there is no deepening in meditation, there is no uncomfort whatsoever in meditation, there are no tensions at all, there's just complete relaxation of the body and rest, then that's the fully enlightened state. So in this state, yes, you don't cry a lot, but if you meditate for like say a couple of hours, and there are all sorts of tension, restlessness, some other experiences coming up, then there is much more to experience, emotionally speaking. Another point is that anger and tears are also deeply interconnected. Like if you don't cry, but if you get angry, then the other part of anger is always sorrow. The other part of anger is always sadness. So if you can get really mad at something, but you don't cry, then it's just that some part of suffering, which is anger, is on the surface, and another part, which is sorrow, sadness, is hidden deep down below.
It's interesting too. I never get. I don't know if I should say never, but I rarely get angry. Like almost.
I mean, again, right? So like it's either you are very deeply realized or you're very deeply suppressed. There's just two options. I don't know which one it is. The only way to find out is to meditate for a long time and see if it brings you can also try taking a psychedelic and see if it's going to uncover, like open up the veil of hidden suppressed things, right? Or it's going to be like, oh, was that like LSD? I don't know, I didn't feel anything. Well, if you didn't feel anything, then you probably don't have much.
Well, I guess it's also worth mentioning that I've been meditating for about 2 hours for about the last few months since I started like January.
Every day?
Essentially, yeah. I've been adding a minute every day until I reach 3 hours, which is gonna be probably by early June.
And what happens in meditation?
So I essentially just feel like uncomfortableness, just basic in my body.
So you feel uncomfortable. You see, if you feel uncomfortable, then most likely not most likely, absolutely, for sure. If you feel uncomfortable, then there is more to explore.
Yeah. And also when I try psychedelics, I don't know if you remember, I told you I tried edible cannabis, and when I do try it, it doesn't necessarily super intensify I don't hallucinate, or I don't experience any of these exotic experiences that many describe for some reason. For me, just like thinking gets skewed, or my perspective changes a little. That's about it. I don't know what that means, to be honest.
So do you have an extensive history of meditation practice?
No, I grew up religious based on my. Yeah.
So tell me, in these 2 hours that you feel uncomfortable in meditation. So you meditate for 2 hours, and for most of the time you feel uncomfortable. how exactly, where is the discomfort? Can you describe it to me? If there are any thoughts, and then do you try to direct your attention in any way to anything? And also, when does this discomfort arise and when does it fall? Is it for the whole 2 hours? Does it change at all? Like, give me a more detailed description of what happens in this 2 hours, because 2 hours is a lot.
Mhm.
And I'm surprised that it doesn't shift to anything.
Yeah, so recently I haven't really been following a specific meditation pose. So usually, so the last time it was just mainly in my lower part of my body. So just my legs were just really uncomfortable, maybe because I walked that day. But also
Walk
I
every
tried.
day?
Yeah, so maybe it was just sore or something.
So,
Maybe it was just
so are
pure
you
physical
saying that
pain.
you meditate for 2 hours and there's no discomfort whatsoever except soreness in your legs because you exercise them every day?
No, so I'm saying it may have been. So I felt just uncomfortableness focused in my legs. So it may have been just uh, a pure physical thing. But usually, there is this subtle uncomfortableness usually consistently concentrated throughout my body. So I feel it in my head, my face, my chest, my legs, and I don't necessarily suffer. It's just like there's no despair, but it's like it's just this subtle uncomfortableness, and it's usually a little bit more than subtle when I'm on psychedelics, for example. So it's just I just come back into thought. I don't know. I guess I still think. It's not like I don't think. I'm glued less, I think, to my thoughts, but there's always a background thoughts that pop up and go and pop and go. But
What are they about?
what are they about? Usually about recent events. I just realized sometimes I have these instant insights on meditation, these long meditation sessions. Like the last one was like my whole past was traumatic, especially when I was young, from like my family. I had like
Is it the
abuse and
first time you have this insight?
was the first time.
Is that the first time that you have that insight that your past was traumatic?
Yes, I always thought that like I had just a little bit of traumas here and there, but I realized that it was a lot. Like my parents, my mom abused me physically. My dad left when I was 6, and then I had abuse from other family relatives. I was bullied when I was young, so I realized a lot of things. And 2 years ago, I was super unconscious that I did stuff that I deem now pretty bad. So that was traumatic as well. So that's what I usually
And when
these
you have
things.
those insights, they're not followed or preceded by guilt, let's say, or sorrow. Are they purely intellectual?
Guilt, shame. So guilt of all the bad stuff. I
Okay,
usually
so then
yeah.
and that
Yeah.
happens in meditation, right?
Yeah, that's not a
Okay, so it's
painful
not just
guilt,
bodily
but
discomfort, right? So we're not just,
yeah,
so when you said like it's nothing but bodily discomfort, that wasn't entirely true, right? So there's some insights and there's maybe some guilt, a sorrow, a shame.
yeah.
Okay, so there you go. So it's working then.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just expecting a more intensified version of this,
Uh,
especially on psychedelics, but it doesn't happen. It's just like this subtle
so
uncomfortableness.
there's absolutely no problem with wanting it a more intensified version, and I think that you absolutely can get a more intensified version of this. So try LSD or try magic mushrooms, and I don't know how much edibles, what the dose of edible you took.
Yeah, what do you recommend, by the way?
Start
Those.
slow. Start like with a kind of a standard dose, like 100 micrograms of LSD, or like 2-3 grams of mushrooms. It's like a standard dose. So start slow, and meditate throughout the whole trip. It's probably going to intensify it. If you feel, it's most certainly going to intensify it. If you feel like you actually can take more, that you are ready for more intensity, that you're ready to approach the sensations, the discomforts deeper, and get a deeper exposure into yourself, then the next time, after some time, to make sure that you account for tolerance, like maybe after a week or something, or something like that, try more, double it, like take 200 mics, or like 5 grams of mushroom. I don't recommend you taking 200 mics right away, because like, even though THC is psychedelic, especially edible THC is quite psychedelic, still there's a lot of difference between like LSD, magic mushrooms, and THC, and there are some people with a lot of tolerance to THC, but they react to LSD very differently. So start slow, and see if you get to the level of kind of intensity that feels right for you. And also remember that, like, after the trip, if it was intense enough, then the sober meditation after the trip, for some time, for like a few days or a week or so, will also get more intense. So there's the trip, which is just an intense meditation, and then there's the integration phase also, where also things tend to get more intense. So try that. I think psychedelics are wonderful tools, and if you feel like meditation is not very time efficient for you, they can really open you up. And like, for example, after some experiences, you might not need them for quite a lot of time, as meditation does become more intense in itself, as you open your heart more.
I've been taking THC edibles, which is sativa. How much of a dose do you reckon? The last time I took 30, and it wasn't like that much.
30 is actually quite a significant dose for edible THC. So
it felt like nothing.
yes, it's quite a lot. I mean, they usually recommend like 5 or 10 for.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, 30 is actually quite significant. So I'm surprised to hear that it only like intensifies things a little bit. Especially, because you've had a traumatic childhood, and you realize that some things that, if you realized it only now that you had a traumatic childhood, the only way that you could have lived all this time without knowing, basically, that you had a traumatic childhood, is if you have a lot of suppressed things. That's only logical, right? So I'm actually quite surprised. But maybe you're not at the stage yet where you sort of, all of this starts pouring out of you. I'm not sure. I don't know. Try taking a moderate dose of LSD. If the moderate dose of LSD does the same, try take a bigger dose of LSD. And,
okay.
and keep meditating. It's also quite possible that meditation with time will also open you up.
Okay, I may have to do some research on LSD. I don't know if I have access to. I live in California. By you,
California is easy. Yeah,
it's easy. Okay.
Of course, I mean, it's California. It's one of the most liberal states. It's quite easy to get LSD or magic mushrooms here.
Okay. Do you recommend a specific branch or like specific kind of LSD, or?
I mean, LSD is LSD.
Okay.
I mean, magic mushrooms, they have difficult like strains and stuff, but I'm not an expert on them. It's still psilocybin. It's just in different strains, they have different quantities of it. So like some strains are very potent, some are less so. I mean, in my opinion, all of this, this LSD does this, that, this LSD does this mushrooms, that, this, that are all bullshit and just a projection of a person who's had a specific experience, and then he attributed it to like specific strain of mushroom. Like to me, right now, I cannot even tell the difference between sativa and indica.
Interesting. So yeah, okay. Yeah, for me, it may be a suppression. So I may have to explore with that, huh?
Probably. I mean, again, we can't know for sure. I mean, if you're completely happy and satisfied with your experience, then you don't need to do anything. But then again, if you're completely happy and satisfied in your experience, then the question arises why you're talking to me.
Yeah, that's what I was curious too. I don't think I'm enlightened. I still feel emotions and anxiousness when I do public speaking and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you feel anxiousness, it's a good sign that there's fear, that there's fear of judgment, that there's
certainly
fear of appearance. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for the answers. I appreciate that. Thank you for your presence also for the students overall. And
you're most welcome. It's my pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's see. I have some comments. I also have something in private chat. Quasi says, internet is slow where I am. Yeah, I don't see you anymore in the guest room, Quasi. Sorry. So AEL says, hi, Artem, good to see you again. Same here. Oh, by the way, before I look at the comments, I would like to do the obligatory call for your support. So if you like my videos, please like them, share them. It helps to promote my content. Please, if you wish, join our community. I will post a link to our community. So we have a wonderful community on Discord. Lots of people undergoing the spiritual transformation at different stages of the path. We support each other. There are specific channels for practicing specific methods. There are channels for venting and for conflict. Lots of interesting stuff. So please join our Discord community. Then also you can support our work. I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm still very, very far away from being able to support myself. So I'm living off my savings. If you wish to support our work, please go to this HTML, this page. You can support us on Patreon. You can also give one-time or monthly PayPal donations. And then finally, if you wish to work with me one-on-one, you can schedule a session with me one-on-one. This is the link. There are various options for different prices depending on financial situation, or if you are financially struggling, there's a free option and $25 option. And during those sessions, I can answer your questions. We can do guided meditations, or we can do what I call radical inquiry, where we inquire into your psyche and into your limiting beliefs. So that's what I wanted to mention before I go to comments. Okay, let me go to comments. AEL 9730. That's like a robot's name. I have a few questions. I'm going to call you. Oh, I forgot. What was that little bleepy Star Wars robot? I have a few questions. One, does the content of dreams after self-realization matter? It matters to the extent that dreams after self-realization tend to revolve around unprocessed traumas and attachment of the prior self, of the egoic self. So in dreams, just like in meditation, you have experiences that are coupled with emotions and that are informed by still not completely processed, rejected emotions. Like, for example, if you've been very much abused and looked down upon, then you can have dreams and meditation experiences which are very sort of aggressive, where you experience a lot of anger, where you kill other people, or you fight with them, or you like put them in their place and things like that. At the same time, if you were a bully, then you might experience a lot of dreams where you feel guilt and overwhelmed by guilt and tears and apologize to everyone, or kind of so explore the other parts of you. So Osho once said, dreams are unlived life. So basically, he's correct. That's what he meant. So they don't matter in a way that they are informative or premonitions or things like that. You see, the thing is that the emotional, the suppressed emotions, the rejected experience always comes up with a story. And the story, when you meditate or in life, unless you go very deep in meditation, you begin to hallucinate, basically dreaming, which is completely fine, by the way. It's completely fine in meditation to have dream-like experiences. That's completely normal. So they come up with a story. And during your waking hours, because it's difficult to distort the reality. I mean, yes, sometimes you can actually see distortions and like woo strange things, even without any psychedelics. But that's kind of, it's much more difficult for the mind to distort the visual reality. So you usually hear the stories as thought patterns. So there's an emotion experience, there's a story playing out in the mind, and there's an emotional experience. So when you're in eyes closed and you're dreaming, or you're sufficiently deep in meditation, then the mind is actually much freer to create a story. It can create an alternate reality, which is what dreams are, and hallucination experiences, like an alternate reality in where you resolve your suffering. And so the dreams are basically visual stories. So Osho once said, dreams is pictorial thought. So I say dreams are visual stories. It's the same story. It's concocted by the mind, but it's around a specific unresolved part of yourself, a specific suppressed part of yourself, where you are having experiences that you previously rejected yourself. So and you forget, of course, during the dream that you're dreaming. That makes the story much more believable, and that makes the emotion experience much more intense. So it's completely normal to have very intense dreams after self-realization, vivid and emotional, and very, I killed people in dreams, I killed myself in dreams, I cried, I wept, I had all sorts of anger, all sorts of different things happened to me in dreams, just like they happened to me in meditation. So that's the extent to which it matters, right? So it matters just as any other story, as a kind of a explanation and entourage again around an unprocessed, rejected, emotional, energetic experience. So you can also get insights in dreams, just like you can get insights in meditation. When you process some part and you let go of some part of your suffering, you get a sort of a reverse view of what reality is really like, which comes in a form of insight. Oh, I've always known this. So they can come in dreams just like they can come in meditation. So you continue. Is anxiety, psychological and physical, a property of the dreaming mind? Yes. Does the path up to self-realization help with both? Yes. So the only thing that I wanted to mention is that there is no help for anxiety other than through anxiety. So anxiety is just low intensity fear, which is kind of long lasting, but it's low intensity, because if it wasn't low intensity, you would call it fear or terror. So just like the irritation is low intensity anger, anxiety is low intensity fear. And all fear in lack of any objective threat to the body is coming from the past, and it's coming from the mind. And so the way to deal with anxiety is to surrender to anxiety, surrender to fear. I mean, it might be kind of difficult when it's kind of a quite unpleasant when it's sort of a low intensity but constant and long lasting level of anxiety. But as you begin to, if you have anxiety, then almost certainly, if you begin to meditate and you meditate for a long enough time, or if you take some psychedelic medicine, then you will deal with it, you will face it in a much more intense way, which will be fear. So surrendering to the experience is key in both cases, whether you're dealing with anxiety that runs over the course of your life, or you're dealing with much more intense fear in meditation. Just let it in. So invite it, explore it. Also explore how the anxiety manifests on the level of the body. You see, you might find to your greater surprise then that anxiety is no more than some tension in the chest or tension in the stomach, and as you give it your direct attention and you stay there and you give it as much attention as it wants, you might be surprised to find out that it releases, it dissolves, and it lets go. So the same advice: explore the experience, surrender to the experience on the sensate, direct level, and let the mind talk. Why does it seem like many people are self-realized on the internet? Because they are lying, but are hard to find in real life. I mean, the people on the internet that claim enlightenment are the most pathetic liars that I've ever came across. It's almost everyone on the internet claims insight, and almost everyone has skin deep insight and lots of intellectual understanding. Some experienced firsthand. Some just borrowed from books that are reading a lot of books, and very little level of embodiment. I mean, even teachers who teach in person oftentimes have very limited level of embodiment. And the anonymous people that claim enlightenment on the internet, it's just everyone wants to be a teacher nowadays. Haven't you noticed? It's very prestigious. It's a very appealing image for the ego. When other people consider you wise and look up to you, admire you, and you help them and stuff like that. So that being said, there are some very honest people there who honestly share what they found, and that are honest about the remaining suffering, that are honest about the remaining struggles, that are open-minded and will will aim to connect with all sorts of different people. But then there are people who claim enlightenment and self-realized, and they still suffer tremendously. At the moment you tell them something that is unpleasant to them, their first reaction is to just cut you off completely and smear you, and then scream boundaries. So you see, I mean, the spiritual landscape is it's a circus of liars. So it's always been like that, and the internet makes it much easier to lie, because on the internet you don't even have to show your face. On the internet, no one knows you're a dog. So on the internet, you can pretend to be enlightened all you want. But where the rubber really hits the road is in real life, not even on video, but in person communications with other people. That's where the rubber really hits the road. So the internet, unfortunately, just like the internet made it much easier for the ego to accuse, disparage, humiliate, hate, because you don't have to look at the person's eyes. When you write all this shit on the internet, all this hatred, you don't have to look at them. You have to look at your reaction, at their reaction to you. So you don't have to look at the anger. You don't have to look at their tears or pain if your words really hurt them. You're just a complete aberration of responsibility. So in the same manner, the internet made it very easy to claim enlightenment and to kind of pseudo fake enlightenment on the internet. So be very, very careful with the internet. Very careful. It's like any person who wants to teach or guide you on the internet and who doesn't want to meet you in person, or at least speak to you on video, is a fraud, period. Like, they might still give you some very good advice. Anyone can. I mean, even ordinary people can give you an amazing advice, like count to 10 before when you're angry. Great advice. Like, one of the best spiritual advice ever you can get from your grandmother. But don't follow them blindly. Don't pedestalize anyone. This actually applies to me too, right? So don't follow me blindly. Test everything that I say in your experience. It is not true until you have verified it in your experience. Anything I say is not so until you have seen it in your experience. And so be especially careful with people who give you advice while insisting on preserving their anonymity or choosing a very impersonal way of communication, which is text. Like, text is the most impersonal way of communication, because enlightenment is as much about intimacy as about anything else. So anyone who chooses a less intimate way to communicate over more intimate is kind of almost by definition a fraud. So be careful. You're saying, is there any point in analyzing whether a thought action is egoic or pure? Actually, no. That's a very good question. You see, the key word here is analyzing, because the mind likes to analyze. So the mind likes to analyze your actions to see if they're right or wrong, that you match some sort of ideal. Just in the same way, the mind likes to analyze the experience, to solve the experience, you see. So what actions of yours were egoic or pure becomes obvious in retrospect once the pain is processed. So that's why kind of most of the time, the insight comes after processing some pain and letting go of pain. And the insights, all authentic insights, are of the form, I've always known this. It's always been true. Only my pain prevented me from seeing it. And so in the same way, once you are free from some pain, I mean, it's a long process, but let's say, so you're free from some pain, then you can clearly see in retrospect what actions of yours, what prior actions of yours were stemming from this pain, were in a futile attempt to escape this pain. You see, so analysis is something different. So analyzing is kind of on the logical level, and the mind loves to do that. If it does that, just let it. But again, as it does that, become curious about what else is going on, what's going on in your body, because quite likely, as the mind analyzes if your action is egoic or pure, there's also some shame going on, right? Or there's also some anger going on, or there's some loathing or blame, or the feeling of superiority or inferiority that is going on. So the actions that are pure are coming from love and reason, self-love and reason, and the actions that are egoic are coming from pain. They're always coming from pain. So, I mean, if you truly analyze it and you pose the question in this way, then not on the logical level, but in kind of explorative way, then invariably, if you see that some of the prior actions were coming from pain, you would also feel this pain. So analyzing it on the logical level makes little sense, but asking those probing questions, if they open you up experientially more, can be useful, yes. Okay, Noodle says, okay, I got to try now with my migraine. Yeah, try that. It certainly helped me. I mean, it's very difficult to do sometimes, but every time that I actually lied down and really kind of focused on the point of pain in my head, after a while it became better. Kedir says, Artem, I can observe my progress, but still have some egoic resistances, but much milder than before. That's wonderful. How do we know where on the journey we are, and how much ego and emotional pain is left? You never know. I mean, I don't know. I've got no idea how much. The only thing I can say, I can describe is I can describe my experience. I can describe my lived experience. I can look back at the past and say that when the journey really began, when it was self-realization, I was extremely sensitive. I cried for every day for multiple years and things like that. And now I can hardly remember when was the last time that I was sad or angry. I can you can judge it based on how emotional your dreams are and how crappy you feel in the morning compared to how you feel in the evening. So it's like the more intensely the mind dreams at night, going through still the remaining suppression, the remaining emotionality, the kind of more of a dream hangover you will have in the morning. So I can tell that right now I'm pretty much the same. But even like a year or two ago, it wasn't uncommon for me to wake up and then cry a little, and then kind of become the same as I was in the evening. So I can tell you from the fact that I can take a lot of LSD or vape 5-MeO-DMT. I don't hear any difficulty or experience any change in my conscious experience. But all of those are the descriptions of the experiences of the past, right? I cannot know the future. So your kind of situation is the same. You can sort of compare yourself, if you wish, with like your level, which you already did in your questions. You already sort of compared your level of sensitivity and suffering now to how it was before, and you say, "Oh, this is much better," right? But you also know that there could be even better. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking this question. So you can compare it to other people, like you can compare it to me. You can look at your dreams, your meditations, experiences, or you can take psychedelics. But ultimately, you see, your questions comes from the appreciation that there's still ego left, and basically your question says, "I want to suffer even less," and so your real question is not that. It's not even that. It's not like, how do I compare to other people, or how do I know where I am? Your real question is about the methods of practice that can further you on this trajectory, which you have already noted, which you have already appreciated because it's much milder than before, and you're now much happier than before, and you want to continue on this trajectory. So your real question is a question of practice, actually, not like where I am or how do I compare myself with. That's what the mind wants to ask, but what you really is asking is about practice. And we can talk about it. You can schedule a session with me. We can talk about practice. You also have another question. Artem, is there a correlation between your level of consciousness and how events play out? Do you get luckier or you only feel better? That's actually a very, very good question. And so some people say it's actually a matter of perspective. So some people say that the world becomes to your liking. Like a yogi basically creates events out of, not the yogi, but some other terms. Like I have some read description, like everything that he wants happens. I mean, to me, that's the egoic perspective. To me, enlightenment is when your perception matches reality, not when reality matches perception, because reality doesn't give a shit about you at all. Reality is much grander than you, and you can only sort of make your perception to be in accordance to reality, not make reality in accordance to your perception, because this other view it's kind of very strange, because then, like, okay, what if there are two enlightened people on the planet and they want different things? So what is going to happen? Like, its space-time continuum is gonna collapse, and like everything, we're gonna be sucked up in the great black hole. I don't know. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So to me, the way that I would answer this question is that no, you actually don't get any luckier. Your life tends to become much more balanced and much less stressful and much more pure. But that's because of the two main things. Well, first, you don't create necessary suffering for yourself. You don't create necessary suffering for other people. Then you can see the intentions and the deceits and how other people are much better, which doesn't mean you don't make mistakes, but it's very difficult to deceive you, right? To entice you with something, to make a false promise to you, and you're just much more rational and reasonable than in the dream state. The dream state is the state of passion. And so from this perspective, the life is, of course, becomes very harmonious, but I wouldn't take it as far as to say, that reality bends to my expectation. Like, for example, like there's a certain chance that there's going to be an earthquake in San Francisco Bay Area. I mean, is there not going to be an earthquake just because I, Artem Boisov, an enlightened being, live here? No, this doesn't work this way. You can imagine, like let's say a meteorite is approaching Earth and it's like about to hit Los Angeles. Oh, but there's an enlightened person in Los Angeles. Let's redirect it to New York. And then the Earth like points away. And then, oh, but there's another enlightened person in New York. We should find a city where there's no enlightened people. This is just absurd. And it also comes from this kind of idea that, it doesn't come from this idea, but there's a similar idea that there could be only one Buddha on the planet and things like that, right? So this is a very kind of elitist way of thinking. And if you really think about it, if you give it some thought, then it basically invalidates the option for a completely enlightened society. You see? So if you agree that there could be a completely enlightened society with no unnecessary suffering, doesn't mean no struggle in life, or no like bad events, or no death, or no illness, but no suffering, no unnecessary suffering, and no irrational abuse, mistreatment, and things like that. If you consider that there's a possibility, then everyone is equal in this society, right? So no one controls reality. Everyone shares the same reality. No one is above anyone else with regards to their spiritual attainment. But there is still, of course, danger, adventure, struggle, death, disease, other like circumstances like natural disasters, and science advancement. So if you don't believe this is possible, then why do you teach at all? And so, of course, I do believe this is possible, and that's why I teach. So from my perspective, the answer to this question is no, I don't get any luckier. I get smarter when I deal with people, but I mean, the events, there's still a significant randomness to my life, just like to your life, just like to every other life, and that's a part of the game of life. My reactions to the adverse events is very different than it was before. So from this perspective, it becomes much more fun. But it doesn't mean that like reality bends to me. No, I bend to reality. The reality doesn't bend to me. No. Okay. Yeah, Patrick says 2 grams is a good start with mushrooms. I agree. Oh yes, R2D2. Yes, so AEL 9730. I'm gonna call you R2D2. Yes, thank you. R2D2. Unity. Okay, Maxime is waiting. I probably won't have time for this now, Maxime. But you can. I'm sorry, but you can schedule a free session with me and we can talk. Okay, is that a question for you? You said the complete enlightenment is about making the unconscious conscious, but isn't that still the point of view of? Okay, Patrick says, will new videos be released? What do you mean by new videos? This one, yes, like it's on YouTube and Facebook, and yeah, I haven't made any new videos other than these. Okay, so we have one guest. I want to add him very quickly, and then I'm going to wrap up because it's been 1 hour and 34 minutes. Thank you, by the way, everyone who came to you. I've had like 45 viewers at the same time today. That's the maximum that I have ever seen. So I appreciate it. Please come next time. Lex, I'm going to. Hi, Lex.
Hi, Artem.
Hi.
It's so great to see you. Finally.
Oh, okay. So you just came here to listen, not to.
No, I had a question actually. I did.
Okay, yeah, because for the future you can just, if you just want to listen, you can just watch on YouTube or on Facebook. But if you want to participate as a live guest, then you can follow the StreamYard link, which is what you did, and then I can bring you on stage. But since you're already here, please.
No, I did have a question actually.
Yes, please.
I wanted you to explain a bit more regarding a quote of yours. This was you mentioned this other day in the server in the Discord. You mentioned that the God's ultimate score is always 0.
Yes. So that's
a little bit of context behind this. We were discussing about some extreme forms of suffering that exists, that persists in the society, like child abuse, etc. And personally, I have like feelings of anger and bitterness when I ponder over these things.
People do that, not God. So it's not that you cannot know the reason why people engage in child abuse or violence and stuff. This is actually so in the answer. So the answer that you quoted, in order not to give people the wrong impression, it wasn't actually in this context. No. Maybe I wrote it after I responded to a question, something like this. But basically, what I wrote was this.
But what did you mean by the score being 0? You said the
it's
score
called understanding.
Ultimately 0.
So the article is called Understanding, and it reads like this. What are we trying to understand in the spiritual path? What are we studying? It's very simple. We're understanding ourselves. We're studying the ego. God cannot be understood. Only the ego can be understood. God is infinite. The ego is finite. What is understood is also abandoned. Our suffering, completely understood, becomes forever gone. That's why mature teachers speak about the ego, whereas immature teachers speak about God. They think they have some insight into God, that God can be spoken about. They are mistaken. In unsurpassed enlightenment, the understanding of the ego is impeccable. It is complete. The understanding of God is always 0. So that's the full text of the article that you mentioned. And God here in this article is synonymous with existence, the universe, everything. So it's basically the same reason why I say, no, it's not that I'm more lucky. I don't know what's going to happen to me tomorrow. I live in the same reality as you do. And my understanding of this reality is limited by, let's say, our understanding of science. You know, my understanding and my ability to predict this reality is limited by my brain and by the collective development of science of humanity. I will never be able to predict this reality because this reality is infinitely complex. Now, the ego, though, is not infinite, and our abuses, the way that people mistreat each other, can be and why it happens can be understood, and it's understood in one's own experience when we see at our own, when we look at our own ego, and the anger and rage which can arise when we look at how we treat each other is part of this journey.
Okay, so it has to be accepted ultimately.
What's that?
It has to be accepted.
Anger and rage, yes. Yes. Because actually the interesting thing is it's it's the same anger and rage that leads to not all, but a very large percentage of abuses, mistreatments, murder, and war. And so this we can see in ourselves, where it comes from, how did we get there, and how to heal from it. And we can understand ourselves very well, but it's not the same as understanding God or understanding the reality that we live in. There is a life is a mystery, you see, which can never be solved. Just like the universe is a mystery which can never be solved by our finite minds. So but it can only be accepted. Our suffering, though, can be understood by experiencing it.
Okay.
You can, of course, say, like, okay, well, why did God allow this suffering in the first place? When did it start? I don't know. Like, I know that
That's the age-old question.
I know that it's been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. When it started, I think that it started when the human settled and began forming hierarchies around who gets, what surplus of food. But of course, I have no evidence for it because it was so long time ago. There is no documentation of it. I mean, at the time of Jesus and Buddha, we had already been suffering for many years, thousands of years, and it's reflected in the stories of various cultures, which all like have quite a lot of similarity, and even in the spiritual traditions of the ancient people who used like also psychedelic medicine and had other spiritual traditions. So basically, it's reflected in religion. So if the society has religion, it's already a deeply suffering society. And but how it started, I don't know, and I don't think that I will ever be able to answer this question. And even if there is an answer to this question, precisely how it started, then you could still say, well, okay, how did reality, how did the universe allow that? Well, the God, from this perspective, God is kind of completely impartial. You see, like for the universe, it doesn't care what happens at all. You see, you say the same thing about God. So the interestingly enough, it is our responsibility to look at ourselves and to see what we are rejecting, and to see to explore and investigate our suffering. Right. That's why only a person by his own will can undergo the spiritual transformation. No one can make you. And yes, oftentimes it feels like when people get awakened, it feels like it's an act of God, surrender of God, like God. But at this point, God is basically just a skewed perception of your true, authentic human self.
But because of this constant bitterness, I think I have like built a nihilistic worldview. So I think
Can you repeat that, please?
this constant bitterness in me has made me build a nihilistic worldview.
That's right. Yes. So you need to work through this bitterness and explore it. And the nihilistic worldview is actually a defense. It's a coping worldview. It's a bitter worldview. You see, it's an escape from the wounds of the world into a sort of
shell. So
yes, into kind of a shell. Yes. The way out of it is exactly through the inner exploration.
All right. Thank you.
You're most welcome. All right. So Patrick says, yeah, new videos like Bevor Neural. Oh yeah. I'm still there are a couple of new videos. There's an interview with Frank Young, and there's an interview with another guy from Twitter. Not an interview, like a conversation in both cases. And I want to publish it. I mean, hopefully within a few days, and hopefully next week I'll publish it. I mean, sometimes I have a lot of plans on what to do, and then I just didn't do anything for the whole week. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's it. It's been too long. So Max, if you want to speak to me, let's do it in private. Okay, everyone, thank you for coming. It was great. It was a fun conversation. See you all later in a couple of weeks. Bye. Love you all. Best of luck to you on the path. Bye.